السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه ما بعد. So we have a topic of it is called Fiqh of Fasting, or it is called Fiqh of Siyaam. Fiqh of fasting, and this is very important. It is very, very important for every Muslim to have a deep and broad understanding of what an act of worship is, be it salah or zakah or hajj or siyam, any act of ibadah. Any act of ibadah, the priority is al-ilm, right? You have to acquire that knowledge. And so we want to go straight to the first question. The first question with us is Masiyam. What is fasting? Right? What is fasting? So, in Islam there are different types of fasting. Different types of fasting are there in Islam. We are fasting on Mondays and Thursdays. Those are sunan, right? It's recommended that we fast on Ayyamul Bayt, like on 13th, 14th, and 15th, right? We are fasting Yawmay, Tasu'a and Ashura, on 9th and 10th of Muharram, right? We are also fasting on Yawm Arafah, on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, right? Especially for those who are not performing Hajj, right? If you perform Hajj, you will be focused on Hajj, so you don't need to fast on Arafat, Yawm Arafat. So there are different types of. There is a Siyam of Nadr, Yufuna bin Nadr, right? If you vow that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, heals me, I make intention, I commit to fast for 3 days, that fasting becomes a must, right? Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man nadara an yuti'a Allah falyuti'hu." Whosoever vows to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he must fulfill his what? His vow. He has to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the fasting that we are presenting here is as-siyamu, fasting in the month of Ramadan. Fasting in the month of Ramadan. So, what is fasting? What is fasting? The question will be, what is fasting? Masiyah. What is fasting? Fasting is an act of worship. It is an act of worship, right? But what is this act of worship? What is it? So then, if you go to the books of fiqh, you will find that al-imsaku عن جميع المفطرات من طلوع الفجر إلى غروب الشمس مع النية. Fasting means abstention, to abstain from everything that breaks your fasting, everything that invalidates your fasting. You abstain from everything that nullifies your fasting. What is the example of things that nullifies your fasting? Kal-akli, like eating, such as eating, drinking, al-jima', being intimate, or intercourse, and many other things. Abstaining from many other things that breaks your fasting. Min tulu'il fajri ila ghurubi shamsi, from dawn to sunset. And this has to be accompanied, it has to be associated with an-niyyah, making intention a night before you fast. Right? Clear, right? You abstain from everything that invalidates your fasting, min tulu'il fajr, from dawn to sunset, and this has to be accompanied or associated with making intention the night before, right? The night before, that night. When today you will be fasting, you make intention on that night, any part of that night. So that is what fasting means. So I'm not going to give a talk, I want to be a teacher, because it is a fiqh of fasting, right? So keep that in mind. And then we say, another question would be, when is this intention made? When is this intention made? And how important is it to make an intention? Did you understand that? When is the intention made? When? So there is a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam narrated by one of the mothers of the believers, either Aisha or Salama. أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: من لم يبيت الصيام من الليل فلا صيام له. من لم يبيت الصيام من الليل فلا صيام له. That whoever does not make intention to fast, whoever does not make intention in any part of night, right, before dawn, which means from sunset to before that dawn, if you do not make intention that you're going to fast the following day, then you have no fasting. Your fasting then is invalid. So you see the importance of making niyyah. And Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu says that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ أو بِالنِّيَّةِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. That verily all actions depends on the intention, right? وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. And that verily each and every person is going to be rewarded according to his what? His or her intention. So intention is the asas, is the foundation, is the cornerstone of all deeds. All deeds are based on the intention, and you will only be rewarded based on the intention that you made. Somebody may say, is it a big deal? We say, yes, it is a big deal. You may be performing salah, riya'an, or mura'iyah. You may be performing salah just to show off. You may be giving sadaqah. You can be charitable, doing big things, but just to show off, just for name and fame. And we know that riya is a shirkul asghar. It is a type of shirk. It is a minor shirk, right? So then, and making intention means, it is called an ikhlasun niyyah lillahi ta'ala, that you should have what? Sincerity of intention. Okay? Sincerity of it. You have to be sincere. You have to make a sincere intention. Ta'abudan lillah. That any act of ibadah is only done to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated and as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam conveyed. We have covered two things until now: the ta'rif, the definition of fasting, and the importance of intention and when it should be made. Now there is a question, and this is very important, whoever is taking notes. Does making an intention in the beginning of fasting, just in the beginning of fasting that night, is it enough? Does it cover the whole Ramadan? Yes. Close the doors. Does making intention in the beginning of Ramadan, does it cover the whole Ramadan, all nights of Ramadan? Yes. Yes, it may cover. It may cover. Now, if you make that intention, it covers all nights. But also, there is a hadith of doing tajdeed of your intention every night, right? So keep that in mind. So renew your intention every night. And you don't need to say it. You don't need to say nawaitu sawma ghadin أو غدا عن أدائي من يومي شهر. You don't need to say it. You don't need to. النية, intention, محلها القلب. The place of intention is in your heart. You don't need to say it. So I think this is very, very clear when we are navigating through Fiqh of Siyaam. A third point is Mata furida siyam. When was fasting legislated? I was at DU yesterday. We covered a portion of this. Fasting, as-siyamu, fasting in the month of Ramadan, as-siyamu fi shahr Ramadan, was not legislated in 13 years of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Mecca. No. But he was observing other fasting, like Ashura and other fasting. When the Prophet ﷺ migrated, لما هاجر, when he migrated من Mecca إلى المدينة, the first year of Hijrah, the legislation of fasting was not yet revealed. And so when was it revealed? When was it legislated, fasting in the month of Ramadan? It was legislated في العام الثاني أو في السنة الثانية للهجرة. Do you understand that? It was legislated, it was made farther, it was revealed. The ruling, the command and instruction of fasting was legislated in Medina in the second year after Hijrah. So that is the history. And in the beginning, it was a matter of choice. It was a legislation, but you could choose to fast, okay, or to pay fidya in the beginning. Until when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed ayat such as Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah number 2, ayah number 183. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, kutiba alaykumus siyam, fasting has been prescribed for you. Prescription means furida. It was made a must. Kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Fasting has been made mandatory on you. It has been made a must on you. You must fast just as it was made a must on those before you. Al-umam as-sabiqa min ikhwanikum min al-anbiya wal-rusul min al-muslimin, your brothers and sisters, alladhina sabaquna bil-iman. So this is a proof that all these anbiya and rusul, as they were instructed to perform salah and pay zakah, right? They were also instructed to fast. We good until there, right? So then, fasting becomes a must based on that ayah. So this takes us to what is the ruling of fasting? Ma hukmu siyam. What is there? What is there? What is the ruling? Ruling of fasting. I really encourage Muslims to learn. You say, why is it important to discuss the ruling? There is one area which is a misconception. There is an area which has been misconstrued, misunderstood by many Muslims. Which area is that? Area of the rulings. What is rulings? We call it in Arabic ahkam. Ahkamul fiqh. Ahkamul fiqh. The rulings of fiqh. Why do I say that it is misunderstood? Now, as an imam who is serving the community, I have many ears, right? More than two. And I hear even kids, and I hear people think that the rulings of fiqh in Islam is all about, is it haram or halal? Is it haram or halal? Right? Haram or halal? Haram, halal, halal. But we need to know, and this is by the way, that there are 5 rulings of fiqh. 5. Anyone who attends my class, that is the first lesson. Having introduced what fiqh is, Lesson 2 is ma hiya ahkamul fiqh. What are the rulings? Ruling is very important to know whether something is, where does it fall, where does it belong, right? So, just by the way, there are 5 ahkam, rulings of fiqh. One is called al-fardu. It is called al-fard. Al-fard. Al-fard, a must. It is a must. It is compulsory. You must do it. You have to act upon it, such as salah, right? As-salawatul khams, such as siyam, such as zakah, for those who are qualified to pay zakah, such as performing hajj, fard, such as birrul walidayn, dutifulness and obedience to your parents. All furud of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is the ruling here? You must act upon it. You must do it. You must say it. If you don't, you are committing a sin and it is punishable. If you act upon it, it is rewardable, right? The second ruling is called what? As-sunnah. As-sunnah. There are different levels of sunnah. There are different levels of sunnah. But under what is called fiqh, the general application of the word sunnah is the following. هي ما يثاب فاعلها ولا يعاقب تاركها. It is a recommended act as acted upon by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Recommended act as done by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whoever acts upon it is rewarded. You act upon sunnah, you are rewarded. It brings you closer to Allah, right? But whoever does not, he has not committed a sin and he is not punished. Now the issue is, if you make it to be your habit to the extent that you want to reject sunnah, then you are committing a sin. Did we understand this? For example, what is the example of that? We perform Salatul Maghrib, 2 rak'ah after Maghrib. Those are sunnah mu'akkada, right? Those are sunnah mu'akkada, like it remains sunnah, that if you don't perform it, you are not committing a sin. As-siyamu, fasting on Monday and Thursday. In case you did not perform on Monday or Thursday, you have not committed a sin, right? You have not. You have not. But it's just shameful that the whole year is going to pass without you, at least trying on Monday or on Thursday. Because every sunnah is an act that the Prophet ﷺ either said, approved or acted upon, right? And it brings you closer to Allah because it is an act of worship. Did we understand that? As sunnah. And then the ruling number 3 is what is called, many people are there. It is called, I'm going to write it here. It is called haram. Haram is the opposite of fard. Haram is the opposite of fard. How? Fard means obligatory. You must do it. Haram means you must not do it. Haram. Haram, right? Haram. Haram, sister. Haram, brother. Haram, right? Haram. So haram means you must not do it. Now listen to this. Many people don't know that when they do not, for example, when they treat haram as haram and they keep away from it, they are rewarded. You know that? When you do not commit haram, you are rewarded. And when you commit haram, you have committed a sin. It depends on the level of haram that you have committed. It can be shirk, right? It can be an act of kufr, right? It can be an act of ma'siyah, disobedience. It can be an act of al-fusuq, right? It can be an act of fasad, corruption. It depends on what type of haram, what level of. And some of them are mukhrijum min al-millah, may cancel your Islam. Some of them expels you from the fold of Islam. It kicks you out. So you have to be very careful. So haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden certain things, and also He has allowed and permitted certain things, right? Now I want to tell you a secret. We are talking about Siyam, inshallah, but this is of great benefit to discuss the rulings. And this falls under usulul fiqh, the principles of fiqh, right? When we talk about the rulings. Your Islam is not going to be better without understanding and mastering these rulings. Because you're going to mess up. You're going to mess up. You need to know these 5 rules, at least these ones. There are some furu, some branches, but these are main to know what is fard, what is sunnah, and I'm talking about the general meaning of usul, the principle of fiqh, right? Even though sunnah is of different levels. There is a sunnah that can be fard, can be qualified as what? It depends on where the usage of that one, and the application of that one. General meaning of sunnah is what I've said, and then we have what is called haram. What is haram? Forbidden, prohibited, right? Do not do it, such as eating pork, right? What else? We don't eat dogs, right? We don't. What else? We don't abuse alcohol. We don't drink. We don't use drugs, right? All type of substance abuse, dry or wet. We don't, right? Lying, not fulfilling your promise, right? So all haram, anything that Allah has forbidden. Girls include marrying a non-Muslim. It's not allowed. This young man with the long hair, if he has no shahada, don't marry him. Tell him I'm a Muslim, okay? I'm a Muslimah. Okay, brothers. Some brothers brings every non-Muslim to me, say, I want to marry her. I say, is she even Ahlul Kitab, Kitabiyya? You say no. Then I say I can't. Because Allah only allowed Muslim men to marry Kitabiyya, Ahlul Kitab. Wal muhsanat min alladhina utul kitab. Not every woman. Just to safeguard and protect your marriage. Priority is a Muslim should marry a Muslim, right? Anyway, we are talking about haram. And then number 4, the ruling number 4 is called al-mubah. 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 Mubah. Al-mubah. You can write it with one A or both. What is al-mubah? Al-mubah is what is known as permissible. It is permitted to do it or not to do it. لا تثاب على فعله ولا تعاقب على تركه. You don't get no reward, you get no reward, and you are not punished for doing it or not doing it. So anybody who says that Islam is a prison, Islam is, you can't even do anything. No, you can do a lot. When did Islam instruct you to eat 4 meals in a day? That is your choice. What about if you just want to eat one? When did Islam tell you that, okay, on Thursday you should eat meat and then rice, and who cares about that? Mubah. When does Islam instruct you like when did Islam legislate like the color of your house, the car that you want to drive? Do you want to buy aeroplane or a car? Do you want to walk on mubahat? When did Islam, for example, restrict you on which flower you should plant at home and not? Should you put it in the kitchen or in your bathroom? Who cares about that? There is more mubahat in Islam, permissible, but many Muslims don't know that. Because of our ignorance of deen, we think that Islam is, we are so restricted. And by the way, there is less haram. You understand that? There's less haram in Islam. If you compare haram and what Allah has made halal and permissible, there is only few items or areas of haram. And in usul al-fiqh, we have qa'idah. نعم قاعدة من قواعد الفقهية الأصولية. It says الأصل في الأشياء إباحة إلا ما دل الدليل على تحريمه أو نجاسته. The origin of things that we are using is permissible. That is the origin. What is the origin? It means that a lot of them are permissible, except that which, if there is a proof that that is haram or that is impure, then we treat it like that. There must be a proof. The only one who makes halal halal is not any sheikh, is not any mufti, is Allah. Is Quran as conveyed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the only one. Only Allah makes halal halal and haram what? So then our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam conveyed what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. Al-mubah means permitted, allowable, permissible, right? Now don't confuse mubah here. You need to understand what is allowable, right? And also, what you should do as a Muslim, do not let mubah, do not spend more time on mubah, because mubah does not earn you reward, right? Not punishment. You need to focus on fard and what? And the sunnah. But mubah is. And then lastly, there is what is called al-makruh. 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 What is al-makruh? It is called disliked. 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 Detestable. Disliked. Disliked. There are many, many things that don't fall under haram, but they are disliked. They are called al-makruhat. You understand that? Even though the word al-makruh, it also depends. This is a general fiqh meaning of rulings. So something may not be qualified as haram, but it is hated. So what is the meaning of makruh? Makruh is the opposite of sunnah. Sunnah, it's recommended that you do, right? You act upon it. Makruh, it is recommended that you abstain from it. And there are many, many, many things. I'm sorry to give a nasty example. Urinating while peeing while standing. Unless you have to. Unless. Some bathrooms are very dirty, right? Very filthy. So sitting is going to cause more harm, right? You are clothed, you are this. But just doing it, no. Because if you stand, it may cause more harm. Especially, it may cause more harm. So there are many, many makruhat. I brought this as a reminder for you that Islam is beautiful. Islam does not just stop at haram and what? And halal. We were discussing fasting. I covered what is the definition of fasting. Number 2, we discussed what is intention and when, where is intention made. Right? And then we came down to the history of fasting matter for Fiqh of Siyaam. When was fasting legislated? I'm so proud of sisters today. There are more sisters than few brothers. Jazakumullah khair for coming. So that is the history of fasting. It was legislated in Medina. Now we want to move on. The question is, another question number 3 is, ala man yajibu siyam? Who should fast? Who should fast? Or upon who is fasting obligatory? Who should fast? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, and that addresses both men and women, male and female. Kutiba alaykumus siyam, fasting has been made a must on you. If we understand that ayah just like that, it means that every Muslim, everybody, anybody who is called a Muslim should do what? Should fast. Lucky, that is not the case. You know why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislating an act of worship and making it to be mandatory or a must or obligatory, also there is ease part of it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ, that Allah did not make hardship on you in this religion. Also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرِ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرِ. Al-yusr means ease. Al-usr means hardship. Inna ma'al usri yusra. Al-usr means hardship. And the yusra there means, so Allah wants ease for you. So then it has to be understood. Yes, Allah has commanded. But upon who? Who is this person that must fast? The worst student is the student who doesn't take notes. Ya Allah, guide some students here. Guide them, Ya Allah. Technology, iPad, earpad, iPad, headpad. You have all these stuffs. You can take notes. You're going to forget. I do forget. Anyway, who should fast? Number 1. An yakuna muslima. Qualifications of fasting. Who should fast? You have to be a Muslim, right? Number 2, aqilan, ay mukallafan. This person has to be responsible, that he or she has attained puberty. That does not exempt young from fasting. So Rasulullah instructed Sahaba to nurture and train Muslim kids at early age. I don't mean one an year old or 2. This is not what I mean, right? So number 1, you have to be a Muslim. Number 2, you have to be a mukallaf, right? Responsible or accountable. Accountable mukallaf, aqil, puberty. And then number 3, aqilan. Aqilan. What is aqil? Sane, sanity. What is the opposite of aqil? It's majnoon, right? A person who has lost his consciousness. Do I use big English? You don't understand me? MashaAllah, I only teach college students. MashaAllah. Consciousness, okay? You did not lose this. You are not mentally disturbed. Number 4, who must fast? We say an yakuna muqiman, a resident. What is the opposite of a resident? Musafiran, a traveler. Number 4, right? An yakuna qadiran ala siyam. He must be able to fast. Able. And what is the ability? Sahihan. He has to be healthy. Right? And also this means that not only healthy, because he may be healthy, but he's too old, so he's still not able, right? So he has to be able, ability to fast. How many points until there? 5, right? And lastly, an yakuna, yani khaliyan anil mawani. Also, he or she has to be free from what? From such things that prevent him or her to fast. You have to be free from such things that prevent you from fasting. Did we understand that? 6 points. Ala man yajibu siyam, who should fast. I mentioned 6 points. Number 1, that you should be a Muslim or a Muslimah. Number 2, that you should be al-mukallaf or baligh, accountable in the sense that you have attained puberty, right? Number 3 is what is called aqilan, sane, right? Sane, sanity. Number 4, an yakuna muqiman, he has to be present. And number 4, what is number 5? An yakuna qadiran, ay sahihan, right? Sahihan, he has to be able, ability to fast. And this means, it means you are healthy, okay? You are healthy and you can, because you may be healthy, but you are old, right? We know what happens at old age. Or maybe you are weak, you can fast. I'm not talking about weakness that you invite, I'm just weak because you want to take a sip of water, or you see an ice cream, and you just feel like, oh, I'm too weak today, just to get to take 2 spoons, right? Don't do that. Okay? Don't try to deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you cannot do that. That is a sign of nifaq. No?
Can you explain mukallaf, number 2?
Yeah.
Number 1 is Muslim, number 2 is what?
I mentioned mukallaf, yeah. I also added the word baligh. I mentioned it with that.
What's mukallaf?
Mukallaf is a person who has attained puberty, a person who is responsible, a person whose good and bad is being recorded. Good and bad is being recorded. He's accountable and responsible for his deeds. And that age starts be sin mother and bulugh. Because there's a person who knows between right and wrong. Right? We are learning something, right? It's a reminder. We are fasting every year. But Imam Shafi has to do this. Yeah, we have to do this. So those are 6 points. And then we say khaliyan, that you have to be free. This person who must fast has to be free minal aw anil mawani. From what? From the such things that prevents a person from fasting. An example. What is it? Especially women. If you are in certain condition, for example, your menses, that is one of the mawani. A woman who gives birth. Okay? When she is in a state of nifas is what? Postnatal bleeding. When you give birth, even if you want to fast, it becomes haram for you to fast. You are not allowed to fast. Can you imagine that? The same fasting is fard, but there are circumstances and situations, okay, that makes it to be haram for you. So we have al-mawani, things that prevents you from fasting. If a non-Muslim want to fast, a friend, don't stop them from fasting. Are they rewarded for it? No. Why? Because they did not fulfill the first condition. What is it? What is the first condition? Al-Islam. And what is the proof of that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam. O you who believe, Allah did not say, Ya ayyuhal nas kutiba alaykumus siyam, Ya ayyuhal insan. No, Allah says, Ya ayyuhal alladina amanu. Right? So that is the proof that Iman is the what? The first condition. Then your salah will be accepted. Then your salah will be valid to be accepted. Then your siyam, just like Hajj. Can a non-Muslim go to Mecca? They can go to Riyadh. They can arrive in Jeddah, but not to Mecca. You know that? Not to Mecca, to the Haram. You understand that? They cannot. So I think that is understood, right? Okay. Having covered that, we are now coming to another area. Who is exempted from fasting? Who is permitted not to fast? Did you understand that? Who is permitted? Who is permitted from what? From not fasting. Is permitted from fasting? From not fasting, right? Who is permitted? Who has a permission? Number one, a non-Muslim. Somebody may say, but aren't you presenting this to Muslims? I say, we have people in this masjid whose parents are not Muslims. You have friends who are not Muslims. You may have colleagues. You may have somebody who is living with you in a house, right? We are living in America. So it's very, very important to highlight this. So if you have a friend, or a neighbor, or a co-worker, or you have a relative who is not a Muslim, who is under you, for example. If your mother comes to your house, you are a Muslim and she's not. Are you going to deprive her from eating? Ma'am, listen, I'm a Muslim and we are fasting. And ma'am, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam. No food in this house. Ma'am, I'm going to get mad. I'm really going to get mad if you open that fridge. No, you don't do that. Give your mom food. Why? Because this is fard on a Muslim. So you understand that? So a non-Muslim is exempted. Yani is allowed. You understand? Unless he or she takes shahada first, right? Number two, a child, a sabi, a child, an infant. But as they grow, please train them. Sahaba used to train kids to the extent that they could make what we call today some toys. They could take them towards the mountain, okay, just to pass time a little bit, right? They could take them out of, how do you call it, city environment, taking them out and, making something like what we may call some, toys and what. So they train them to fast. Train your kids. Number 3, who is exempted from fasting? Majnoon. Majnoon. An innocent person, right? Exempted. The Prophet ﷺ said, Rufi al-qalam an thalath, that the pen is lifted, the pen that writes. We know that angels are writing our deeds, right? Kiraman katibin. Kiraman katibin ya'lamuna ma taf'alun. There are honorable angels who are recording what we do. Whatever you say, any movement you make, whatever you do is being recorded. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they know exactly what we are doing when we are doing it at that moment. Keep that in mind. You're never alone. Oh, I'm alone. Nobody's seeing me. You don't understand your deed. You don't understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's security system. You don't understand that. You need to understand the system of Allah. Your deeds are recorded. Majnun. So Rasul said that, but there are 3 people who are exempted from recording. The pen is lifted on these 3 people. 1, عن الصبي حتى يحتلم. An infant until when this infant attains puberty. Number 2, عن المجنون. Al-majnun is what? Is an innocent person until when he gains his what? Consciousness, right? Until he becomes sane. And lastly is عن النائم حتى يستيقظ. A person who sleeps, a sleeping person, until when he or she wakes up. Can I send you? I need Mikael. Sister Mikael, you wanna come? Yeah. Come. Yeah, I send you. Are we good until there? Sorry for interruption. Can you talk to Sister Mikael? Adnan, talk to Sister Mikael. Don't look at her. I don't. Yeah. Okay, sisters. So we mentioned 3 people, right, who are exempted. And I was just bringing in this hadith, for understanding that there are people, even though these are recorded, good or bad, but still there are people who are exempted, right? So we are talking about a person who sleeps until when he or she wakes up. Good. So now, I mentioned 3 people who are the permissibility applies to. Permissibility applies to them, right? We continue. Al-Musafir, a traveler, is permitted not to fast. Question is this: what about if he wanna fast? You can't fast. It's allowed. It is allowed. If you're traveling, you have a choice of fasting or not fasting. You are permitted not to fast. Sahaba says, radiallahu anhu, that we Sahaba traveled. We were on a journey with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فَمِنَّا صَائِمٌ وَمِنَّا الْمُفْطِرُ. Some of us were fasting and some of us did not fast on the same journey, and we did not blame each other. Did we understand that? Even though taking permission is better. Taking permission is better because of mashaqqa and su'ubat and hardships on the journey. But you fly 2 hours. You fly for how many hours? An hour between here and Salt Lake City. Look, you decide that I'm going to fast. Alhamdulillah, you're not committing any sin. Point number 4, a traveler. Point number 5, people who are permitted not to fast, right? Is al-marid, a sick person. a sick person. And there are two types of sick people. المريض الذي يرجى برؤه والمريض الذي لا يرجى برؤه. A sick person whose cure is anticipated. You have a disease like you have fever, okay? You are sick, and you go to the hospital. You make dua and you go to the hospital, and then you are cured, right? You are treated, which means a sick person whose disease or illness is treatable. The ruling here is different, and also there is a sick person whose ailment or disease is not treatable. Somebody who is suffering from cancer, or you understand that, terminal chronic diseases. So what is the ruling? For the first one, whose ailment or disease is curable, right? Is curable and treatable. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned them in Quran. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Whosoever is sick or on a journey, traveling, then they are permitted to break their fast, only that they will have to make it up after Ramadan. You pay by fasting. لكن المريض الذي لا يرجى برؤه, a person whose sickness or ailment is not like treatable, right? Of course, we as Muslims still believe that لكل داء دواء. Every disease has what? Cure. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may allow that situation to be like that, right? So at human we say it's not cured, right? It cannot be cured. Then what is he gonna do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةُ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. For those who fast with hardship, those with hardship, right? If they fast, it's so hard on them, then they have to feed عَنْ كُلِّ يَوْمٍ مِسْكِينًا. They have to feed a poor person on the missed days. So this person doesn't need to fast, right? Because he's growing weak and weak and weak. So this person will just feed a poor person daily. Did we understand that? Am I a good teacher or not? In America, you have to, and I'm not bragging, you just have to take it back, and yeah, that is America. Nobody's gonna say you are doing good here, Imam Shafi. Hadan Allah Jamia. Anyway, so we have mentioned how many people until here who are permitted. One, we say a non-Muslim, right? A kafir. Number two, a child, as-sabi, alladhi lam yahtalim. Number three, talk to me. Majnoon, right? A person who is insane, right? Lunatic, no, insane. Another thing is a traveler, right? Another one is no? A traveler or sick, right? Who is permitted? Who is exempted from fasting, right? Who is permitted? Another person is, we say, al-ha'id, a woman in her days. She's exempted. In fact, even if she wanna fast, it becomes haram on you. We have covered that, right? So how are you gonna deal with that? If it is 10 days, if it is, your days, then automatically after Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to make up those days. You also fall under fa'iddatun min ayyami ukhar. You have to fast. You will pay those days by fasting, the days that you missed. And there is a hadith of Aisha, right? There is hadith of Aisha. She says, and this is a good news for sisters to understand the Fiqh of Siyaam. Listen, if you miss, of course, when you are in that condition, right? You cannot pray, right? And you cannot fast. You can perform Hajj, but there is one thing you can't do to make tawaf, right? When these big girls don't come to learn by me, I feel bad, because you have much to learn, especially being big girls. You're gonna be mothers tomorrow. You're gonna be somebody's wife. You're gonna be And you cannot miss this. This knowledge is available in Ashab al-Kahfi. It's available. Come, let us talk. Let us talk. You need to understand fiqh al-nisa. It's very important. Anyway, people are just doing ibadah. People are just doing ibadah. Go to Makkah doing this. Anyway, where were we? So then we say, if you are in your days, you cannot pray, right? And you cannot fast. But after Ramadan, what is this that you are forgiven, pardoned from paying, and what is this that you have to pay? You have to make it up. You don't need to pay salah that you missed during your days. All of them, you don't need to. So when people talk about, oh, there's oppression in Islam, who is oppressing it? Men don't have a leave. You don't have leave, you don't have off, you have to pray. And then sometimes people say, oh, why there's a bit of oppression? How comes that only men lead salah? We say, but don't you know that if you are on your days, you cannot even pray. So if you are the imama, how are you going to lead Jum'ah tomorrow? It's not oppression. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us as human beings, but we are different. Right? We are different. One of them is this. It is a relief for you. Allah created you, He knows, and so He's relieving you, okay, from certain duties. So the point I was making is that you don't need to pay your salah, but you have to make up your missed days. Also, another person who is permitted from not fasting is an-nufasa. Your days in Arabic is called, I'm sorry to say this, maybe somebody, haid. And then when a woman gives birth, that situation is called nifas. 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 Right? Nifas. Postnatal bleeding. These two conditions have the same ruling. You are permitted from, yani not to fast, right? From fasting. You are permitted. Another person who is permitted is a child, as-sabi. Did we mention that? As-sabi. And another person is shaykhun kabir, an old person. An old person is also exempted from, if he can, he tries, he fasts. But you know, if he's old, then what does he do? The ruling is there, that he has to pay fidya. How many points did we write there? How many points? What is the first one? Nam? People were exempted from fasting.
Non-Muslim.
Non-Muslim, an infant, al-majnoon,
Al-Haid, al-Nifasa.
a traveler, sick. Those are 5 already. And then al-ha'id, from haid, al-ha'id, a woman in that state called haid. And then nufasa, from nifas. What else? As-sabi, alladhi lam yahtalim. And then
Old.
شيخ كبير الرجل الذي أصابه ماذا شيخوخة الكبر. He cannot even help himself, right? And an elderly person. And also, there is a person who is غير قادر. غير, he can be healthy, but he cannot. If he fasts, he for example, he collapses. What do you say about that person? He cannot, because of, some issues. He's just weaker. He cannot. This person also falls under those who fast with, how do you call it? Hardship. There are 2 other people who are also permitted to break their fast. One is called al-murdi'a. Al-murdi'a. You know al-murdi'a? And al-hamil. A breastfeeding woman and a pregnant woman. Breastfeeding, and some scholars say that after, in case they don't fast, some scholars say that if they fear for themselves, or if they fear for, in fact they say they should fast. One group of scholars say they must still fast unless they fear for themselves or they fear for the baby. You understand that? For the fetus. Like in other scholar says, a pregnant woman has a reason of not fasting. And also a breastfeeding woman, okay, also has a reason for not what? And after Ramadan, there is those two statements that she has to make up the missed days and pay fidya. In fact, there is three aqwal. You make up the missed days and you feed, okay, a poor person. But another one is that you only make up the missed days. And the third one, you only pay fidya and you don't need to fast. So if you hear any scholar talking about those, know that those are three established scholarly what? Opinions. You can go with one of those, inshallah. Because it is these are opinions of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Did we understand until there? I'm coming to the last part because we will be praying a few minutes, inshallah. What did we cover until now? It was fiqh of fasting. What did we cover until now? Where did we start? Introduction to fasting, right? What is fasting? And then we came to an-niyya, intention and how intention should be made. And then we came to when should it be made, right? And then we gave we covered two opinions. One is renewing your intention every night, every night. I forgot to say that it starts with as soon as عندما تغرب الشمس. As soon as sun sets and you break your fast, that is called night. Anytime from there until before dawn, right? Before the entrance of Fajr, you can make intention. And it's not a big thing that, no, intention should be made where? You don't need to say it. And then we came to the history of fasting, right? We also explained that there are different types of fasting, right? Different types of fasting. Just like there are different types of salah. Unfortunately, many Muslims focus on only as-salawatul khams, 5 daily prayers and sunnah. Do you know how to perform salatul janazah? How many Muslims knows how to perform salatul janazah? Complete. From takbiratul ihram until down there. What do you say after first takbirah? Second, do you know the dua that is recited after the third and fourth? Do you know that you can also make more than 4 takbirat? So there is a fiqh of janazah, janaiz, fiqh of this. You have to sit down and learn. Anyway, we are with fasting. We came to the history, right? And then we said that even before Ramadan was legislated in Medina in the 2nd year of Hijrah, Rasulullah in Makkah used to observe some fasting, right? Just like before as-salawatul khams was legislated, Rasulullah used to pray morning and evening. You know that? You know that? In Makkah here, morning and evening, right? Where are we? We said what is the ruling of fasting in the month of Ramadan? We said that it is wajib, right? And then we said who should fast, who must fast. And we explained who must fast. 6 points, right? 6. And then we came to who is permitted from not fasting, who is like exempted. And we mentioned how many points there? 10. Okay, 10 points are there. I'm coming to the last part of this. Mubtilat or nawaqid as-siyam. Mufsidat. They are called mufsidat as-siyam. Mufsidat. We call them mufsidat as-siyam. Mufsidat as-siyam. Mufsidat as-siyam. What are they? Nullifiers. Invalidators of fasting. What are they?
Food, eating, drinking.
No. Mufsidatu. Do you know what invalidates fasting? I'm going to tell you something that maybe you never thought of. The first one is ar-ridda, leaving Islam. Wal-iyadu billah. If you are a Muslim, you are fasting, right? Half day. Then you say, I'm no longer a Muslim. Done, right? your Islam is gone, your Salah is gone, your fasting is gone. Do you know that? Ar-Ridda. The fact that you declare, I'm not a Muslim, that takes away everything. You need to take a new Shahada, right? Number 2, Al-Aklu, eating. Al-Aklu amdan. Eating. Deliberate what? Deliberate eating. Number 3, Ash-Shurbu amdan. Drinking. Deliberate drinking. Why did we say deliberate? Because the Prophet ﷺ said in hadith, إِذَا نَسِيَ أَحَدُكُمْ, if one of you forgets, فَأَكَلَ أَوْ شَرِبَ, then it happens that he or she eats or drinks. Drink and eat forgetfully, not deliberately, right? Not intentionally. What should you do? Can you imagine? Day 1, day 2 of Ramadan, this do happen. Day 1, day 2 of Ramadan, oh, many people drink water. I'm telling you, it happens every year. It happens every year. You forget, you're in the house touching your things that you're used to. So it happens, if you forget, and then it happens that you drink or you eat, what should you do? The Prophet ﷺ said, فَلْيُتِمَّ صَوْمَهُ, let him or her complete her fasting. فَإِنَّمَا أَطْعَمَهُ اللَّهُ وَسَقَاهُ, because the one who fed him or gave him to drink is Allah. And you don't need to pay it after Ramadan. You don't need to. That did not invalidate your fasting. So if you ate forgetfully and you drink forgetfully, it does not invalidate your fasting. Now we go to there. Eating, drinking, unintentionally. Somebody may say, but how much? I say, even if your belly reaches here, you are still good. Even if you eat the whole plate, then you remember that, hey, I was fasting. Please rinse your mouth and continue fasting, and you don't need to pay it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا إِن نَسِينَا أَوْ, O our Lord, do not hold us responsible, right? If we forget, or if we make a mistake, unintended mistake, ya Allah, do not hold us responsible. So alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to punish you for forgetting, right? Did you understand that? Mufsidat Siyam, mufsidat. Another thing that breaks your fasting, there is a very big word for it. There's a big word for it. Now, listen to this. Anything that reaches your throat through your nose. Did you understand that? Anything that went through and it reached your throat, inside through your nose. But there is an area which is exempted. For example, eye drops does not break your fasting. Eye drop does not break your fasting. Injection does not break your fasting. Like here, on your veins, does not. Did you understand this? Injection. Okay? A normal injection does not. Eye drop does not. Ear drop does not break your fasting. So keep that in mind. Anything that reaches your throat through your nose. Okay?
Water?
Yes. Another thing that breaks your fasting is when you are performing wudu, al-wudu, it is called al-madmada. Al-madmada, rinsing your mouth. If you intentionally allow water to go through your, did you understand that? And that is why it's very, 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 very important that when you make wudu in Ramadan, you have to be careful. Do not push it so deep, because there is a big chance that water will go through. So that also may, and that is why Rasulullah when he taught wudu, he say wal madmada, and when he mentioned al madmada wal istinshaq, then he say illa an takuna sa'ima, except if you are fasting. Do not push it, too deep, because anything that passes anything, liquid food. Remember we mentioned al-aklu amdan wa shurbu madha amdan, eating, deliberate eating, and deliberate what? Drinking. What does it mean? You drink with the intention that is going to pass you up. And people who are swimming is allowed in Ramadan. But really you're going to swim opening your mouth like this. What do you want? Oh, very few people swim without taking some, how do you call it? They don't care about chemicals in it. So people say it's the sweetness of swimming. You have to take some sips. Astaghfirullah. Did we understand that? Another thing that breaks your fasting is called al-hijama. What is hijama? Cupping. Who knows cupping? Cupping. Cupping. You know cupping? It's written like this. C-U. I think with double P. Cupping. If you write cupping, you will see. Alhamdulillah, sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and it has been, it is medically proven. Medically proven. So healthy. You understand that? And the Prophet ﷺ said, Aftara al-hajim wal-mahjum, yani, he said that a person who is doing cupping and a person who is being cupped, both of them have broken their fasting. This includes another point. It includes withdrawing extra blood. Extra blood. But if it is, shay yasir, there's no problem. For example, you go to the hospital and they want to run some tests, That does not. It does not. Like if they take more blood, for example, definitely, that one will, it will break your fast. Another thing, feeding someone through veins. What is that? There's a word for it. How do you call it?
IV fluid?
Yes. The IV stuff? So anything nutrition, pushing nutrients through the veins, it also breaks your fasting because it is food. Food, anything food through your veins, also because it gives you, strength and this. So it also breaks your fast. How many points did we mention until now? How many points? Sisters are more keen today than brothers.
5.
Sisters, say something. What did we write? Mufsidatu Siyaam. What are they? Invalidators of fasting. We're left with few minutes. Very few minutes. We have to pray, inshallah. What is it? The first thing was? Now?
Eating.
Leaving Islam. Eating and drinking intentionally, deliberately. What else? Now? No. What? Sick was people who are permitted, right? That was under those who are permitted not to fast. But we are talking about mufsidatu siyam, things that invalidates your fasting. Now,
IV.
hijama, right? We said feeding somebody, I use that as for a IV, feeding somebody through veins. What else?
Madmada.
You remember we said, yani, when you're performing wudu, when you rinse your mouth, pushing water, if it goes through you have to be very careful. Hey, what else? Mufsidatu siyam. Mufsidatu siyam, things that invalidates your fasting. Automatically, sisters, if you are fasting morning until 10 and then you start your days, you are in high, it breaks your fast. Do not continue. A woman who was pregnant, who was fasting, okay, and she has to deliver, as she is delivering, her fasting is gone. Did we understand that? Another big point is called al-jima, intimacy. Being intimate. Fi nahari Ramadan. It's not allowed. It's not allowed. Between not a boyfriend and a girlfriend. That one in Ramadan and outside Ramadan is haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Right? Do not even come closer to fornication or adultery. إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. It's evil. And it leads to a bad way, right? We are talking about the halal between a husband and wife. It's not allowed. It is haram fi nahari Ramadan. You understand that? So when you are fasting, it's not only food and what? It's not only food and eating. You fast from not eating, not drinking, but also intimacy. Right? Sexual intercourse. If it happens, what do? We have known that if you missed your days, if you did not fast because you are traveling or you are sick, right? فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. Then you will make up the missed days. You will fast, right? Or we also gave an example of a person who is sick, but his sickness is not treatable. This person will feed the poor for every missed. And how do you feed them? You can either, feed individuals, or you can just make food and invite 30 people the days that you missed, if it is 10, and then feed them at once. Did you understand that? طيب, al-jima'. So, what do you do if that happens between a husband and wife during day of Ramadan? Now, when we say that it's not allowed, we say during the daytime of Ramadan. At night it's allowed. Did you understand that? There is ayah in Quran. If you read ayat of fasting from Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 183 down, all the ayats, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أُحِلَّ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامِ الرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنَّ. That permitted for you is being intimate with your wives. It's allowed. Did you understand that? هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنَّ. They are your garments, and you are also their garments. So it's allowed to do it at night, but until, you can only do it until, before what? Before dawn, right? You can do that. Like, فَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ, right? So you can eat and drink, okay? Until there's distinction of what? The white thread from the black thread, right? So you need to understand what is meant by white thread. And somebody may take two threads. Oh, you take white and black, you put under your pillow, then you say, this is not what is meant. What is meant is darkness of night, brightness of morning, okay? From the darkness of night. That is why we have to learn Quran. Otherwise, those who say, I can learn Quran by myself, then you take two threads and you put under your pillow. Then you say, it happened to some Sahaba like that, right? So what happens if in case you are intimate with your husband during daytime of Ramadan, you have to do one of the three things. One, you have to free the slave. Itqu raqaba. So Islam came to free people from slavery in different ways. Number two, if you have no one to free, what do? You have to fast for 2 months, 60 days. Two months, right? 2 months. Sometimes it may not be 60 because what about if it's 29? So 2 Islamic lunar months, right? And if you cannot do that, what do? Then you are left with an option of feeding sittina miskina, 60 poor people. That is the penalty of being intimate with your husband or your wife during fi nahari Ramadan. Conclusion is this. This is a very, very blessed month. And the Prophet ﷺ kana yubashiru sahaba. He used to give good news to Sahaba when Ramadan began. He told them, Atakum Ramadan, Shahrun Mubarakun. That Ramadan has come to you, such a blessed month. Fihi, that in this month, Tuftahu Abwabul Jinan, وتغلق فيه أبواب الجحيم. That gates of Jannah are open and the halls of Jahannam are closed. And then وَتُسَلْسَلُ فِيهِ shayateen. And shayateen, demons, the aggressive ones. So now there is no excuse. Oh, shaitan cheated. The aggressive ones among shayateen are also chained up. And then he say فِيهِ لَيْلَةٌ. In these months, there is a night خَيْرٌ مِنْ أَلْفِ شَهْرٍ. One night is better in reward than 1,000 months. That is almost 83 to 84 years, right? Of ibadah. Can you imagine that? One night, Laylatul Qadr, right? Then he say, Man hurima khayraha faqad hurim. Whosoever is deprived of the reward in that night, and of course in the whole month of Ramadan, indeed he or she is deprived. You know what is happening every night? If you allow me to conclude, this is what happens. People fast during Ramadan daytime, and I say that when we were at DU, at the university. Many Muslims are only fasting during daytime. At night, they are back to their normal life, playing cards, playing this, watching movies, listening to music. Just funny things, wasting time. Are you really fasting? When was Quran revealed? During daytime or at night? At night, right? Somebody rather watch movie after movie saying, I'm pushing time. Some people don't even sleep until suhoor, just watching. What are you doing here by watching movie? What does movie and listening to all those music, what does it earn you? This is a month of Ramadan, right? And it is a month of Al-Quran, right? It is a training, sisters. Allah has blessed you. Even at your respected working places, there is that, sometimes they take you for some short courses, right? They bring you back to know the system, to know the new structure at work. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is blessing us with this month. Allah is bringing us back to our realization that the way Ramadan is structured, that is how we should lead our life outside Ramadan. So every night, فَيُنَادِي الْمُنَادِي, Allah is sending angels in the beginning of Ramadan. That night, Ramadan starts and Allah is sending angels. You know what are they saying? فَيُنَادِي الْمُنَادِي. Angels are announcing, يَا بَاغِيَ الْخَيْرِ أَقْبِلْ. Angels are saying, oh, you who wants to do good, come forward and do good, because it is a month of doing good. Angels are inviting you to do good. You tell angels, no, I have my movies, I have my Somebody is addicted with the phone night, 6 hours. You start calling and texting. Now it's just a joke watching this. I'm asking, is there any advert outside here without nudity and bad stuff? Why sinning in Ramadan? And an angel say, Ya baghiya sharri aqsir. Oh, you who intend to do bad, stop from doing bad, stop from committing sin. Why? Because this is not a month of even committing sin. وَلِلَّهِ وَتَقَاءُ مِنَ النَّارِ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is freeing many people from Jahannam. You know when that happens? وَذَلِكَ فِي كُلِّ لَيْلَةٍ. That is every night of Ramadan, Allah is setting people free. And also another hadith, every night and daytime of Ramadan, Allah is freeing people from Jahannam. What does it mean? If you committed a sin, okay, which might have not been forgiven, maybe you forgot to ask Allah for forgiveness, wallahi, by participating in acts of ibadah in the month of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is freeing you from Jahannam. I hope we learned something. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nas'alullah an yuballighana Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to be part of Ramadan when we are in a spirit, I'm using the word spirit, when we are in a condition of iman, and also ihtisaban, hoping reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all Muslims min ahli sunnah wal jama'ah all over the world, al-ahya wal amwat, those who are those who have passed away and those who are living. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. I don't know, after all this detailed explanation, if anyone has a question. No question. Jazakumullah khair. No question. No question. You have my number. Imam Shafi is on Facebook. Imam Shafi is where? Imam Shafi is on TikTok. Imam Shafi is... you can ask question. Have my number. You can text me, engage me in Ramadan with questions, whatever we can answer. If I have answers, I will give. If I don't have, I will refer you to other great scholars, inshallah. Inshallah, let us make dua for our brothers in Palestine, in Somalia, in Myanmar, all Muslims all over the world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us peace, right? In Lebanon, in Sudan, right? All the trouble, cities and villages, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them peace and stability. As-salam al-iman. And tomorrow, inshallah, is 29th. How do we begin Ramadan? How do we? There are two ways of beginning Ramadan. The first one, برؤية الهلال, by sighting the moon. And if moon is not sighted tomorrow on 29th, what else do we do?
Calendar.
Then we have to complete 30 days of Sha'ban. Then the following day automatically will be the first day of what? Of Ramadan. Barakallahu feekum. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم أحقن دماء المسلمين. اللهم أحقن دماء المسلمين في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم بلغنا رمضان. اللهم بلغنا رمضان. اللهم بلغنا رمضان. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. والحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خير.